Jacksonville Jaguars 7-round mock draft. Let's get controversial. So before we get into this mock draft, big shout out to this video sponsor, BetUS. And guys, right now, BetUS has this big March Madness competition going on where if you guess correctly all 6 of the games currently on the screen, you're going to win $150 of free money. Look, there's no money down on this. Just create an account on BetUS using the link down below, and you have an opportunity to win $150 of free cash. So get in on the fun, get in on the action. All the Florida teams have been kind of kicked out of this tournament, so definitely check that out. And real quick, before we get into the mock draft, let's get a quick word from BetUS.
BetUS, America's favorite sportsbook and casino. Live betting and racebook. We're celebrating 30 years with a historic offer. A 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits. Plus 10% gambler's insurance. Get started today. BetUS, where the game begins.
So before we start this mock draft, there are a few different ground rules here. Now, first of all, the Jaguars have 8 draft picks here. I am not going to do any trades in this draft. I'm just going to do this straight up. I will probably go into and do a video maybe about trades. I actually did a trade video last Saturday about potentially the Jaguars trading up, to the top 10. So if you guys haven't checked out that video, definitely do check it out. But with this one, the Jaguars lost pick number 79 overall in the 3rd round through the Calvin Ridley trade. They also did gain pick number 96 in the 3rd round via a Juwan Taylor comp pick. So you have 1 pick in the 1st, 1 pick in the 2nd, and 1 pick in the 3rd. And you also have 2 picks in the 4th round because the Jaguars picked up an extra 4th rounder from the New Orleans Saints. We made a trade last year where we traded away the 4th round pick in the 2023 draft to gain back a 2024 4th round pick as well as a 2024 7th round pick from New Orleans. And then the Jaguars also gained a 6th round comp pick via Arden Key signing with the Tennessee Titans last year. So those are different picks that the Jaguars have. Like I said, no trades. Now let's get into it. Now I did this mock draft on PFF, and I am definitely team like wide receiver in the 1st round. That's what I want to go, but, with this one, actually there was a run on receivers before the Jaguars picked. Mitchell was gone. The Jaguars also had Brian Thomas Jr. gone. So the best player on the board was cornerback Terrion Arnold. And this kind of feels like the way the Jaguars will probably go. It just feels like everything is leaning toward cornerback. He's plays in Alabama, and he's a raw talent, but he's an excellent athlete. He's very, very fast as well. Good recovering speed, really good stop ability, and most of all, he is great in man coverage. And as we look toward what Trent Baalke likes, and we also look toward what Ryan Nielsen will want to bring to his defense, Ryan Nielsen's going to want a cornerback that can play man coverage very well, and Baalke's going to want a guy that has the different traits, okay? It feels like in a lot of ways Baalke can be like traits over tape. I don't know. That's just kind of what it feels like since he's been the GM for the Jaguars. But, and right now the Jaguars cornerback position, it's definitely, I guess, questionable right now as to what the future holds at that position. You have young guy Tyson Campbell going into the last year of his rookie contract. So is that a guy that you want to re-up? You have Ronald Darby on a 2-year cheap deal. Darnell Savage, he was a safety for the Green Bay Packers, but he just got announced this week that Doug Peterson and Ryan Nielsen will use him as a nickel cornerback. But generally, with the cornerback position, you want on a team, you want one guy that's getting paid a lot of money, and you want one guy that's going to be cheaper on a rookie contract. Now, if the Jaguars do decide to extend Tyson Campbell to a new deal, pending how he plays in this new defense, you would kind of have him on one side and then Terrion Arnold on the other side, and you have 5 years of control over him. So it's a pretty good cornerback group where you only kind of have to figure out what you want to do at nickel from year to year. So with Terrion Arnold, he's a guy that it's pretty easy to see why the Jaguars would like him, and, he was there at this pick. So, boom, I got Terrion Arnold as the 1st round draft pick. Now, next up, at pick number 48, the Jaguars Keon Coleman fell to the Jaguars, wide receiver from FSU. And, this would be a dream scenario for me. Of course, I want a wide receiver in the 1st round, but if Keon Coleman were to somehow fall to the Jaguars at pick number 48, that would be excellent. And with the Jaguars wide receiver spot, I think you need a specific type of wide receiver. You know, I know a lot of people on Jaguars Twitter and in my comment section are talking about like Ricky Pearsall from Florida. Well, for me, I don't really want a receiver like that. The Jaguars are pretty good when it comes to receiving threats in the middle of the field. You know, Christian Kirk, you have Evan Ingram, and you even have Parker Washington as a good kind of backup role player in that spot. But on the outside, who do you have? You have Gabe Davis and pretty much nobody else. Pretty much nobody else. So with that spot, we need a very specific wide receiver. You need an outside alpha type of wide receiver, and I think that's what Keon Coleman definitely has the potential to do. And, you know, kind of like Teron Arnold, he is a great athlete, really good speed, but he's also a raw player. He needs to kind of learn the route tree, which learning the route tree will kind of help in his ability to separate, which is kind of the big knock on him. But, you know, he's a guy that's 6'4", 215 pounds. He's a very physical player. And with the Jaguars, they need a player that Trevor Lawrence can just throw the ball to and can actually win the 50-50 balls. Because, you know, there's been times where players on the Jaguars haven't been able to get that good of separation, but, you know, sometimes you have players like Jamar Chase or Mike Evans, you know, these guys that, you know, if there isn't much separation, they can still come down with the catch. And that's what the Jaguars need of a receiver. And I think Gabe Davis can kind of do that, but at the same time, let's go young at the position. Let's finally draft a guy, okay? We haven't made any draft investments at wide receiver in forever. I mean, you haven't drafted a wide receiver in the first round since, like, Justin Blackmon. You know, you haven't drafted a wide receiver in the first 2 days of the draft since, like, what, DJ Chark? You know, and then you go back to 2014 with, like, Allen Robinson and Marquise Lee. Got to invest at that spot. Oh, wait, no, actually, in 2020, the Jaguars drafted Laviska Shenault. Completely forgot that guy out of my memory. So, yeah, Keon Coleman, I think, would be a great move here. Now, in the third round, pick number 96 overall, I have the Jaguars taking, and please excuse the way I pronounce this man's name, Justin Igboigbe. Okay, he's a defensive tackle from Alabama. Now, he's another guy, you know, when you do these mock drafts, and this isn't necessarily a, I guess I would say, who I want type of mock draft. It's more of a predictive mock draft based on what I think the Jaguars will do. And, you know, he's a guy that, look, he's got the bulky traits, okay? He's got the great measurables. He's got really the size and length to be an elite player. But, you know, right now his pass rush arsenal isn't great. And, you know, right now he is a little bit more raw. But, you know, with Trent Baalke and Ryan Nielsen, they get a player with a lot of upside, and, you know, he could be a great role player. And most of all, and this is one thing that I think the Jaguars have done a pretty bad job on both the offensive line and defensive line, is being able to draft players, you know, in the middle rounds of the draft to be able to learn well behind a veteran, okay? Like, right now, you have Brandon Sheriff playing right guard, when ideally Brandon Sheriff would be out of here because you drafted a guy to replace him. And, you know, we'll get into the offensive line a little bit later. But, you know, with bringing in a Justin Igboigbe, he'd be able to learn behind a guy like Eric Armstead, okay? I think that would be very important to be able to have a guy like that that can kind of train him up, you know, similar to how, I guess, Calais Campbell did for a year with, you know, Josh Allen. So I think this would be a good move, get a good defensive line player that, you know, he's not going to be forced into a lot of action in year one, but you can also play him in year one. You know, he's going to be a good run stuffer, and he just needs to learn to be an overall, you know, a good player on all ends, I guess I should say. So, next up, pick number 114, I'm sticking to the trenches, but going to the other side of the ball. I have Cooper Beebe, a guard from Kansas State. Now, the Jaguars, really, the offensive line right now isn't built very well because, like I was saying about cornerback earlier, it's the same pretty much in every unit. Like, you want your fair mix of players playing on the rookie contract versus players on, you know, their second and third contracts. So right now, the projected starting offensive line for the Jaguars includes 4 players on, you know, their second or third deals. And right now, the whole entire interior of the offensive line is playing on, you know, their second, third deals. Nobody on rookie contracts. And, you know, I think with getting a guy like Cooper Beebe at guard, he can learn behind a right guard, Brandon Sheriff, to be able to kind of replace him maybe next year. And He's a guy that's played all different positions, left tackle, right tackle, and left guard, but he is definitely built for guard in the NFL. And he's a player with really good fundamentals, and I think he's a player that can be coached very well. But I do think that one reason maybe the Jaguars wouldn't draft him, and maybe this needs to be a philosophy change, because I can understand like the traits kind of thing, but the Jaguars generally try to bring in like athletic type of offensive linemen, okay? And that's great because, they can pull, they can move all around, and, they can run down the field to get lead blocks. They can help in a screen game. All that is good, but it comes at a cost, and that cost is the fact that the Jaguars got completely dominated, on the offensive line last year because we had a bunch of athletic offensive linemen, but not a bunch of big, strong players. So, maybe they can kind of shift that and bring in a player who may not have the athletic upside, but a guy that's built well to be able to move bodies, okay? So, with this one, I got Cooper Beebe at pick number 114. Now, the Jaguars have two picks later in the fourth round at pick number 116, and I had the Jaguars taking Cade Stover, tight end from Ohio State, okay? So with the Jaguars tight end position, you have Evan Ingram on an expensive contract. You have, Brenton Strange, who you just drafted in the second round last year, and you also have Luke Farrell, who's going into the last year of his rookie contract. And, the Jaguars are a team that they like to run 3 tight end sets, but they only had 3 tight ends on the roster this year. So what do they think of Luke Farrell? Do they see him as a long-term building block? I think he's been all right, but, you can definitely get a little bit better there. This is a player that, has received pretty high receiving grades, and he also really understands leverage and blocking because he was a former defensive end, so he can get dirty in the trenches as well. And, with this one, tight ends are just found all over the NFL draft. I mean, if you look at some of the best tight ends in NFL history, I mean, heck, a lot of them played basketball and just went undrafted, but these guys are found all over, and I think this guy has potential upside to be a pretty good tight end. So, try it out. We'll see how he does. Then you have a player that can, kind of play behind Evan Ingram, and I think that could be a good move. Now, next up, in round 5, pick number 18, this is where things get a little bit spicy, okay? This is where people will probably click off of this video, and I want to appreciate you guys for watching. Please drop a like on your way out. As I mentioned, this next guy, okay? I have kicker Harrison Mevis from Missouri, okay? Now, why do I have a kicker going here? Look, the Jaguars' kicking situation has been a complete mess the last couple of years. Ever since Urban Meyer kicked Josh Lambo, he kind of brought in a jinx or some kind of curse over the Jaguars where, Josh Lambo all of a sudden became a terrible kicker. And then you had a revolving door of kickers in 2021. In 2022, you had why can't I think of the man's name? The Riley Patterson, who played pretty decent, but he didn't have a strong enough leg. And hey, maybe, look, I made this mock draft a couple days ago before the new kickoff rule changed, so maybe that will actually help out Riley Patterson to where maybe they won't need a kicker with a huge leg like this guy. But then in 2022, 2023, you replace Riley Patterson and bring in Brandon McManus, who was a kind of a disaster toward the end of the year. And, you bring back Riley Patterson, but then you try to give Will Lutz a 3-year deal. Okay, so clearly the Jaguars aren't happy with the kicker position. So maybe they just try to be one of those teams that the first team in the draft the first team in the NFL draft that actually drafts a kicker. Okay, I wouldn't be super mad about it. With a guy like Harrison Mevis, like I said, huge leg, had a 61-yard game winner against Kansas State, so that was really good. And I don't know. Maybe they're the team that takes a swing at kicker. The Jaguars definitely unsettled there, but I'd be really interested to see, does this new kickoff rule, does it help out Riley Patterson? I'm not too sure. So next up to round out this draft, in round 6, you're going to draft safety Omar Brown from Nebraska. Now, this is kind of where a lot of times defensive backs get drafted because you want to find your like Daniel Thomases, you want to find your core special teamers, and this is a good range to do it. He's a guy with a tall frame and long arms, which of course Trent Baalke will like. He's a willing player in run support, which makes me think that he'll probably translate pretty well to special teams, and maybe he can kind of help compete in that safety room. So round 6, kind of a throwaway round. So is round 7. So with that said, we'll end this one off with Brandon Coleman from TCU. He is a tackle. He's a player that has a great frame. He has lots of playing experience. His draft stock did drop a little bit in 2023 because he was playing injured. So that's why we're able to get him kind of in the later rounds like this in round 7. So with all that said, I think he's got a good framework to be able to build and maybe turn into a swing tackle in the future. We'll just have to see. So with all that said, I won't go too into those guys, but I do want to end this video before it gets too long because I don't like these being very long, so you guys can kind of stay tuned for the whole entire video. Let me know what you guys think of my mock draft. Am I an idiot? Do I not know football? Look, guys, I'm just a fan. I'm not an expert at this. I don't sit here and grind tape. I just do enough research and I watch enough to be dangerous, okay? But we are about a month from the NFL draft. I can't wait. I certainly hope you guys can't wait. And like I said, thank you for watching. Also, thank you to BetUS. Definitely check out their March Madness promo. And be sure on your way out to drop a like. Are you excited about the NFL draft? Let me know some of your best draft takes in the comment section. Definitely love reading them. And with all that said, thank you for watching. Go Jags.